to vet proposal ideas. If you've got some great ideas and are looking to collaborate with your college peers across the system, we do encourage that, but this is not the forum to do so. We do welcome your questions during the webinar. However, we tend to, unless it's a real straightforward, easy question, we do tend to capture your questions today, get them triaged among our expert staff, and then provide written answers to your questions. We upload a Q&A document and we keep it updated regularly through the application process until the Monday before applications are due. And so we do encourage you to check back to the Job Skills Program webpage frequently to check if there's some new Q&As posted. Your peers ask really good questions. Why not learn from them by checking the Q&A? All of the program resources are available online at the Job Skills Program website. The easiest thing you can do is go to the State Board's website and use the search bar to type in Job Skills Program, and then scroll down through that webpage to find updates like the Q&A document. What we'll cover today is provide you kind of the high-level overview of next year's program guidelines, things about the purpose for the Job Skills Program, funding priorities, who can apply, details about funding and budgets. We'll provide information about how to apply, accountability requirements, timelines, and some common errors that we've observed in applications over the years. So I'll get us started with the purpose of the Job Skills Program. The legislature established this program in 1983, so been around for a long time with a lot of success. And the legislature requires in statute that this program provide short-term training for specific industries. We need to have you meet at least one of these priorities or purposes when you apply. Provide training for prospective employees before a new operation opens or when there's a business expansion. A project could include training or retraining of workers who are already employed to avoid their dislocation, or when upgrading of existing employees would help create new vacancies. And the fourth possible purpose is serving an area with high concentrations of economically disadvantaged persons and high unemployment. Keep in mind that this is the intent that the legislature set forth for this program back in 1983. The purpose of the funds continued. The Job Skills Program is also intended to do one or more of the following: promote the growth of industry clusters in a region, serve an area where there's a shortage of skilled labor to meet job demands, promote the location of new industry in areas affected by economic dislocation. And finally, the training provided for any job skills grant must align to the community and technical college system mission, vision, and values. Okay, in addition to establishing the program and the intent for the program, the legislature also sets forth funding priorities. These are priorities that increase the ranking or the has the opportunity to garner higher point values from the review committee if your proposal meets one or more of these priorities. So priorities include training that provides college credit or leads to a recognized industry credential. Proposals from firms or businesses that are in strategic industry clusters that are identified by the state of Washington or in a local area. That's a term, industry clusters, that some local economic development areas have moved away from, but what you're looking for is, does your local economic development association or workforce development council or chamber of commerce have a list of industries that are especially critical to the local or regional economy? Those are the kinds of priorities you're looking for there. We also have priorities around proposals from firms that are certified as minority and women-owned business enterprises and veteran-owned businesses. We also have priorities around proposals that are focused on coordinating with other cluster-based programs or initiatives. There are a number of initiatives, economic development approaches that the state of Washington and local areas invest public resources in. So that's a priority for this program as well if your project helps to leverage or contribute to that kind of initiative. Additional priorities include proposals that come from consortia of educational institutions or consortia of employers who are partnering together to solve a shared training need. Proposals geared at increasing the capacity of educational institutions such as community or technical colleges that can be made available to industry and trainees beyond the grant activities. And finally, proposals showing that there is a business cash contribution to the project. We'll talk more later about the dollar for dollar matching requirement for this program. And one of the priorities is that businesses bring a cash contribution to the proposal. However, that's not required. The minimum requirement is a dollar for dollar match that is at least in kind. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Here we're going to take a look at the eligible instructional or educational institutions for the job skills program. This is set forth in statute as well. Eligible education institutions must be a public secondary or post-secondary institution, an independent institution, or a private career school or college within the state operating inside Washington state and authorized by law to provide programs of skills training beyond the secondary level. We have some more details on this slide about specifically what that means. And this is also included in the guidelines. All of the information we're providing here. I know we're going through the slides fast and there's a lot of written information. All of this information is taken directly from our program and fiscal guidelines, so you can look at those as well. Okay, so the applicant is the instructional institution partnered with an eligible business. And an eligible business partner must be a private corporation, institution, firm, person, group, or association that's generating commerce, trade, manufacturing, or the provision of services in Washington. In other words, your business partner needs to be a partner that is located here in Washington and is engaged in some form of commerce here in Washington. We also can accept applications with partners that are public or nonprofit hospitals licensed by the Washington Department of Health. I want to say a word about nonprofit organizations. There are lots of different types of nonprofit organizations. When you have a nonprofit as your business or your employer partner with this program, what you're looking at is the training needs to be for their own employees, a skill training to upskill or reskill employees or future employees of that nonprofit organization. In other words, the job skills program isn't a good match for partnerships where there's actually a need to provide training to social service clients of a nonprofit organization. So I hope that distinction is clear. We're always welcome to welcome your questions, and we can provide more clarification anytime. Okay, let's talk about the level of funding in this program. First off, importantly, and you're going to hear us probably repeat this a couple of times, this is an annual funding program and it runs on the state fiscal year from July 1st of 2026 through June 30th of 2027. There are no extensions allowed with state funding. That is a hard end date of June 30th, 2027. For that period, we have an estimated 7.725 million in grant funding available. There are some finer details about exactly what that number is, and part of that has to do with how we conclude this fiscal year. At any rate, this is state funding, no federal funding involved, and it's fully administered by the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. For both single company and consortia projects, the maximum grant award is $600,000. We do offer quarterly application opportunities if and only if there is funding available. And we're going to mention this a couple of more times when we look at timeline. This application, the opportunity that we're talking about, constitutes round one for the job skills program application. If there happens to be funding remaining after round one, we will issue additional funding opportunities, and we will keep you posted through the Continuing Education Council, Workforce Education Council, and numerous listservs available to the community and technical college system. We'll also put it on our webpage. Okay, this is a matching grant, and so the college and the business partner is responsible to contribute dollar for dollar, 100% match to whatever the grant award is. And the college has a responsibility to keep records in partnership with that business to ensure that documentation is clear and available, demonstrating that match. I'm going to say a couple of more words. I think we get into the match particulars later. I'm going to look at Vicki and Melanie. Do we talk more about match later? About like cash versus in kind? Do you know? Yeah. Okay. I'll just mention briefly that match can come in as entirely as cash, as the employer paying for some elements of the training up to 100% match to the grant, or it can come in kind contributions, including the wages and benefits paid to employees while they're in training activities. For small businesses, we'll get into this, but I do want to mention that a small business with within a certain revenue cap just has to meet the employee wage and benefits during training activities. They don't have to go all the way up to that dollar for dollar match. We'll talk more about that later. We do administer funding surveys twice during each grant year, and those are really important for colleges to participate in because that helps us understand how well you're making progress toward the goals of the grant and whether there are resources that are no longer needed by the grant and can be moved around into other grants. Upon approval of an application, an award notification and budget will be sent through the online budget and invoicing system called OBIS, and funds are accessed by invoicing the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges for expenses as they are incurred. We do reserve the right to decline funding grants that are not in alignment with the mission, vision, and values of the public, community, and technical college system. Here, I'm going to touch on two general policies that are new to the job skills program guidelines this year. And we want you to, of course, read all of the policies, general and program specific policies. But here I wanted to highlight the two new things that were added, just so to get your attention on those. The first is the responsible use of AI. The State Board may use AI tools to perform internal administrative tasks and possibly to analyze trends about this funding program. However, we will not use any AI tools to score or otherwise assess individual applications. A college may use AI tools in preparing the proposal, and that won't affect scoring per se. We ask or we discourage from using AI tools to generate substantive content of your grant application. And of course, all applicants are expected to ensure that all of the facts, references, content of your proposals, and data are presented, are human verified as factual. The second general policy, it's not a new policy at all, but we wanted to make sure that it's visible to JSP applicants, and that is a policy about the guidelines for statewide and regional contract services. That is a policy and procedure that exists in the State Board Policy Manual, and it just outlines expectations and guidelines about out-of-district contract training, which JSP is a state-supported form of contract training. So we want you to be familiar with and aware of those contract training guidelines. Vicki, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about common errors.
Thank you, Carolyn. We compiled a list of the most common issues we see in hopes that you will use this as a checklist as you complete your application. So, starting with the worksheet, a few details that are easy to overlook include the trainee wage information, the zip codes, the training provider's description of the match amounts, and the planned outcomes. Although this may seem like minor details, they can result in multiple follow-up communications. Now, on the application side, budget requests are sometimes entered with decimals, so please round all amounts to whole dollars. Another frequent issue is incomplete position details. And so when listing staff, ensure that you have the job title, the percentage of effort, the salary or hourly rate, benefits, and a clear description of their grant-related responsibilities. The program guidelines give you examples of how to enter this information. Mistakes also happen in budget narratives, such as missing cash match details or itemized costs that do not match the budget. These inconsistencies alert our fiscal team. And then if you're applying as a consortium, make sure that all the partner details are fully completed. I think it's one G to one N, but make sure that you have all of those information with regards to the number of employees, etc. And then finally, be mindful of the cost limits. Administrative and project development costs together cannot exceed 25%. This is a strict requirement. Oh, and one last important detail in the assurances, if your partner company operates under a DBA, be sure to include both names. Yes, Melanie, I remember to add this. And then bottom line, we encourage you to carefully review your submission. You utilize this checklist and the checklist in the application. Please double check your work, and addressing these points early will help facilitate a smoother review process. Thank you. Back to you, Carolyn.
All right, thank you, Vicki. And now I'm very happy to turn the slides over to Melanie to walk through some application information and grant resources. And Melanie, let me know when you're ready to kick it to the next slide.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right, so to actually apply for this funding, you'll log into our online grant management system, which I will refer to as OGMS. If you do not have an account to that system already, you will need to contact your college's or organization's security contact. That link is listed here in the slide, but anyone who accesses the OGMS website can see those security contacts. Then the security contact can create your account. SVCTC staff cannot create accounts for your faculty and staff. That has to be done by your security admin. If you already have an OGMS account, that's great. You're already a step ahead, but you will still need your security contact to grant you access for the 2026-27 job skills application before you'll be able to see that and start a new application in the system. And in the process of applying, if you have any questions about OGMS, please see the user manual under the How To tab first. If you go through that and you still have questions that neither the manual or the security contact can answer, you can send an email to Carrie Kaufman, whose info is on the slides here. She is our OGMS guru and can help you address any troubleshooting issues with the system. All right, next slide, please. All right, so once you have access to that FY27 application, you'll create a new grant application in the available grants section. We do suggest you only go through that process once per project, as after you create that application, it will be in the FY27 screen for you to access and make edits even after the fact, even if you log out in between. And then in your application, there is a link to a section called Grant Info, as shown on the slide here by that little red arrow. Under the Grant Info, you'll find program guidelines and all the other documents related to this grant. So please make sure you visit that link and read through those documents prior to starting work on the application so you have a full view of what you'll need to do. And we'll review those required documentation documents in greater detail later on here, including that training match course and outcomes document that Vicki mentioned earlier. All right, next slide, please. So the application itself has several different tabs and sections you'll need to complete in full. The first tab of the application is your applicant info. So that's where you'll enter your contact info. The person that's listed first in this section should be the person who will be the main grant contact all year long, should the application get funded. Although it is entirely possible that your college or organization has like a central grants office, and you may need to enter a contact from that office in either the primary or secondary contact field. So please, if you do have your system kind of set up like that inside your institution, make sure you're reaching out to all involved to ensure you're filling that out correctly. And as you're entering your email address here, please double check that you're entering it correctly. If you end up with a typo there, you won't receive the automated emails in OGMS. And those automated emails are how we will tell you if your application has been returned and needs modifications, how we'll tell you if it's been accepted and other pertinent information. So definitely make sure you're giving us the right contact in that field. And then you may want to add OGMS to your email contact list as a safe sender as well to ensure that you're going to receive those notifications. All right, so we'll go to the next slide here to talk about those different sections. So the next section in OGMS is the assurances section. Under that tab, you will find a link to the 2026 and 27 assurances document. So that's the only document that's not in the grant info section that you'll need. So click on that link, it'll open in another window and allow you to print or download the assurances document for completion and proper signature. And then once you have that signed, you'll upload that in the attachments tab. And if you do have any issues with that, see the OGMS manual for instructions on how to upload your documents and also what files are acceptable. We love a good PDF. And just a note, we will need a signed copy of your assurances uploaded in that attachment section in order for your application to be considered complete. That is another one of those common errors, so make sure you're making sure that is all set to go when you hit submit. All right, next slide, please. And then in addition to the assurances, you will need to upload the training match course and outcomes worksheet in the attachment section. We do want you to know there has been a change in the courses tab in that worksheet. So if you filled this out previously, it will look a little different now. Colleges will now have the two options for reporting training compensation. And more details are included in the instructions of the worksheet itself. If you have any questions about that, definitely reach out and we will be happy to walk you through it. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is go over the budget details for this application. So the funding opportunity does have 6 different budget categories as seen here on the slide. For accounting, tracking, and reporting purposes, it's critical that items are budgeted to the correct lines and in the correct budget cells. So you may want to work with your business office, as this does go back to how those expenses are classified in the accounting system. So if you're not too familiar with that, or just for good measure, we definitely encourage you to have your business office contact help you complete that section. As you're completing your budget, please be mindful that there are 3 budget activities: project development, instructional, and administration. Costs on the administrative lines may not exceed 20% of the grant total. So again, that's a 20% cap on administrative costs. And then costs on the project development and administrative lines combined should not exceed 25% of the total budget. Any proposed expenditures must be allowable uses of state funds. So the project development line, that should include allowable expenses in support of your proposed project. So things like arranging the trainings, developing the training plan and scheduling, project coordination, completion of a project report, those types of things go under project development. The instructional line should account for the personnel and supporting expenses for the direct instruction costs. And then administrative lines are where you can budget for administrative expenses related to your program, such as completing application materials, monitoring budgets, student coding, and associated expenses such as that. Again, we do have more information and expanded category and activity descriptions and examples of each within that guideline document. So please read that thoroughly to help you completing a cohesive budget. And one last note on this, all cash contributions used as a grant match must also be included in your budget narrative. So be sure to include those in the correct activities and categories as well. And with that, I will go ahead and hand it back over to Carolyn.
Thank you, Melanie. All right, we're going to walk through some more details about the application. If you're applying as a consortium, that is, if you've got a group of businesses that you've pulled together on a single grant application, you're going to do some additional elements. And that is that you're going to describe, there's some supplemental descriptive information about each participating business in OGMS. Those are items 1D, like David, through 1N, like Nigel. And then, because we want to know information about each of those businesses. Are they all in the same industry, or is it a few different industries? What size are the different businesses, and so forth. You'll have budget information to complete in OGMS, and that must represent the totals for all businesses in combination in the consortium. And then you're going to track trainee, course, wage, and match information for each individual business participating. And then you can include a combined summary for the whole project. Okay, minimum requirements and evaluation criteria, part 1. So section 6 in OGMS is going to give you a very short checklist to make sure that you've got your uploaded documents all in order. So check section 6, use it as one checklist in your process. Please know that we cannot review incomplete proposals. But we are available right up until 4 o'clock on the day that the applications are due to answer any questions or support you in checking that your application is complete. The review committee will represent a mix of business, industry, labor, and workforce development professionals. Keep in mind that not all of them will know contract training jargon, or industry jargon, or higher ed jargon. So unpack acronyms and jargony words to make sure that the people reviewing your proposal will really understand and appreciate what you're proposing to do. This review committee is established in state statute. They're called the Workforce Education Customer Advisory Committee. They have a standing subcommittee that reviews these proposals each year. And then they make recommendations to state board leadership. Staff, also state board staff, do a very in-depth review for completion for that all of the fiscal review includes things like, are these individual costs allowable? So we carry the review committee's recommendations to leadership along with any feedback from staff, and then the state board makes state board leadership makes final approval decisions. Okay, a little bit more about minimum requirements, part 2. It's very important in the beginning of the OGMS application that you describe the major products and markets of this business. It really helps set up your narrative about what's the need and what's the solution. So in your project overview, you'll be able to make a clear statement of why is there a training need and what is this grant proposing to do to address that training need. Your narrative information should line up with what you have checked off for the intent and priorities that the project has been designed to meet. All right, let's go through some important administrative accountability requirements. First is the matching funds requirement. Every dollar of JSP funding must be matched dollar for dollar with the business partner contributions. I'm going to mention one exception to this, and I'm going to look at Vicki to make sure I get it right. And that is if there's, for our business partner that has gross revenue of $500,000 or less, then the match requirement is simply the wages and benefits paid to trainees while they are in training activities. How'd I do, Vicki? Thank you. Expenditure accounting. Each project must be maintained in a separate account. Any cash match from the business participant must be placed in this separate account. Invoicing. Educational institutions shall invoice the state board using the online budget and invoicing system, otherwise known as OBIS. Continuing with accountability requirements, we have student and course coding requirements that all job skills program courses must be set up quarterly in CTC link with a class number, subject, catalog number, and only JSP students may be enrolled in sections designated as JSP courses. So we're not putting job skills grant students in open enrollment courses. Subcontracts. If you have contracts with subcontractors, so if you're subcontracting a portion of training in this grant, the contracts must be placed in place before paid work can begin. When a subcontractor delivers a significant portion of the training, provide specific steps your educational institution will take to ensure that the benefits of the project, the job skills investment, are maximized for both your institution and the broader industry. What does that mean? That means that the legislature, when they set this program up, had a dual intention for benefits to the employers and workers who are getting the direct training service provided by an educational institution that should also benefit from engaging in this program. And so if you think about the legislature's dual intent that the program benefit business and their employees and educational institutions, then if you're subcontracting, please examine, is there value of that subcontract? Is it something that the institution could actually deliver itself? Or is it essential that it be subcontracted out to another training provider? Okay, records and retention. Educational institutions must maintain records on trainees, curriculum, financial records, course records, time and effort, and any external audits. Final report. We have a final report required for all grantees, and the deadline to submit it is July 10th, 2027 for all grants that end June 30th. Okay, I did mention this already. The Workforce Training Customer Advisory Committee has a standing subcommittee that reviews all grant application material. The committee reviews and scores all applications that meet minimum eligibility requirements. So we're not, if we receive an application that's significantly incomplete or ineligible, the review committee is not going to see that, but when they review applications, they use standardized scoring. The scale is shown here, where it's a 10-point scale. And we have them provide us their scores, and then we use an aggregate score to rank and consider all of the applications in that ranked order. Timeline. Job Skills Program applications are due no later than April 30th, 2026 at 11:55 p.m. Please note that State Board staff are available to provide you assistance until 4 p.m. on April 30th. We will conduct our review and approval process during the month of May. We will make notifications about grant awards through email and through OGMS. As Melanie mentioned, please make sure that you or your closest partner on this project has OGMS as a safe email address. You will be notified if you have feedback, if we are asking for revisions or any fine-tuning of your proposal. Those emails are that feedback's gonna come through an email from OGMS. So please be looking for those emails. They are to be considered time sensitive. Awarded grants will have their funding available beginning July 1st of 2026. We do have a budget revision cutoff date of June 15th, 2027. And our invoice cutoff date, final invoices must be in by July 15th, 2027. I mentioned this before, but I want to mention again, if after this initial round of funding applications, if there's funding remaining, we will offer another application round for future opportunities. If we do that, all of the projects still have to be done by June 30th of 2027. So a future round of 1 quarter from now would still be subject to that state fiscal year deadline. Okay, we have a few resources here for you to consider if you're interested in including, information about how this project advances the system's strategic plan. Please look at the State Board strategic plan. In contemplating how your proposal contributes or leverages regional economic and workforce development efforts, you can look up your local Workforce Development Council using the washingtonworkforce.org website. You will need to tell us what legislative district your business customer is in. And so there is a legislative district finder through the legislature. And of course, we have quoting and reporting guidelines on our website as well. All of these links will be available once we get these webinar slides posted. And again, Vicki and I are available to provide program and application support. We will always help you get to our fiscal staff, Melanie and Carrie, if you have specific questions that are really for fiscal staff. We welcome your questions and answers or your questions. We'll provide the answers throughout the open application period. Please keep checking back the website to see any updates to the Q&A. If you ask us a question about your project in particular, we will capture that and make it anonymous so that people can't see that it was from a specific college. But we want all applicants to be able to see your good questions and our answers in the interest of fairness and lifting all colleagues together. Finally, your feedback on this webinar experience is helpful to us. When we conclude, a screen will pop up in your browser, and we ask that you take a couple of minutes to give us feedback. Our shoulders are strong, and we really appreciate your candor so that we can continue to improve. I'm going to check in with Vicki, Megan, and Melanie to see if there's anything else you would like to add. Okay, thank you so much. This concludes the webinar. Or did we have any questions?
Yes. Well, Lauren asked this yesterday, Lauren, and then she posted it again today. I'm sorry that we were not able to get the answer from the answer to your question, but the question, Carlin, is, does the union representative need to sign for the collective bargaining line on the assurances form? Is that a requirement?
We're going to have to research that one. That's a new question for me. So we will research it, Lauren. We will put the question and the answer into our written Q&A doc. We'll get that uploaded, and then we'll also follow up with you individually. Anything else?
That's it. And if you want to ask your question live, the floor is yours.
Okay, I will stop sharing my screen and officially now announce that the webinar has concluded. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.